So we have another monologue on Speaking Louder Being Silent, The Destiny of Data by Mr. Atul Batra, CTO Manthan Systems. Atul is CTO for Manthan Systems, where he is responsible for driving technology innovation and product engineering. Previously, Atul was Senior Director Engineering at Yahoo, where he built a team that delivered vertical intent search products that used Yahoo global user audience. Prior to Yahoo, Atul was in the Bay Area at Good Technology Inc. Earlier, Atul had spent nearly 11 years at Sun Microsystems, where he helped build middleware products, led the open sourcing of Portal Server product line, represented Sun at OSS, led the Sun Yahoo Alliance, and helped craft company strategy around. Let's welcome Atul.
Thank you for that kind introduction. So, good afternoon, everyone. I hope, it's really great to be here at NASSCOM. I hope you're having a wonderful day. I know the mid-afternoon sessions, a couple of hours after lunch, it's hard to focus. So what I thought I would do is kind of throw PowerPoint out of the window, so to speak, and just have a conversation and throw out a couple of ideas on the topic, destiny of data, and then maybe come back to a little more discussion with all of you if time permits. Right? So before we do that, if I could have a quick straw poll and understand, kind of the audience better. How many people in the audience are entrepreneurs? Okay, very good. How many want to be entrepreneurs? Okay, excellent. How many people working for large or mid-sized companies? Okay, startups? Okay. How many people working in a product or a services play, that's very focused on data? Okay. And how many analytics companies here? Okay. Couple. Okay. And how many people think that they've really optimized the usage of data? So that was really an exclamation point, not a question. So, it's a very, very important topic. So if I take a step back and we talk about, data and big data, I think it's very fair to acknowledge that today we are looking at an era of unprecedented data or big data, right? In fact, I was reading a statistic the other day that the amount of data generated on the internet every second is equal to the data that was stored on the internet 20 years back across the internet, right? So that's kind of the scale, volume we're looking at, and that trend is just accelerating, right? We're really in the era of big data computing. And if you really look at, sort of the history of how we got here, if you look at technology and computing, we had the mainframe movement, 60s, 70s. We had personal computing, take place. We had the internet come along, client server, mobile devices, cloud, applications moving to the cloud, so software as a service, different business models. And then we've had, things like social. So I see, data, the whole data movement sitting as a culmination, logical culmination of everything that's happened in the last 30, 40 years, right? And so today we're basically dealing with, very, very large set of data, and people are trying to make sense of it. I think Mark Anderson famously said, software is eating the world today. So I think it's really the data, which is the fuel behind that engine, that sort of phenomena happening. If you really look at, kind of take a step back and you look at what are the trends, that have happened. So I think one is, we have near ubiquitous connectivity, right, across the internet. So a large chunk of the world population is today connected through the internet. In fact, it's very, very interesting what the likes of Google are doing. How many people have heard of Project Looney? So they've, that's a very, very interesting project where they have hot air balloons, beaming the internet over rural areas, including in Africa. So I think the world is going to change, dramatically, much more than it has in the last couple of years, in the next following years. The second trend is, I think we are in an era of all-you-can-eat bandwidth, right? I mean, data plans have got very commodity, become much cheaper. In fact, in India, as you may know, they're among the cheapest. The third area, which I think is very profound, and we were just looking at the Internet of Things, is about the devices revolution. And I think smartphones is one piece of it. Smartphones get smarter and smarter. I think that's just one piece of the population. Just devices and machines and, sort of the Internet of Things is really going to proliferate from here. So everything will have a digital heartbeat. And I think we'll have a private Internet of Things. If you think about your, the whole hype cycle around smartwatch, next we'll have the smart fridge and so on. In fact, it's very interesting. I was looking at the Discovery Channel the other day. They were talking about the city of London, as a smart city, and they have millions of sensors across the city to try and optimize traffic patterns, right? Cameras and sensors and all that, and they're generating petabytes of data, right? And processing it in real time and then, streamlining traffic and so on. So very, very, profound, use of sort of big data there. So I think, data is being generated at a very, very fast click. I think the logical question is, what do you do about it, right? So I think, if you're a business, why you should care, obviously, is, I think you can optimize your business performance. You can increase your profitability, increase your margins. If you're a consumer, you can get better, information, intelligent information about products and offers and so on, right? If you're a vendor, there's enormous opportunity because compute infrastructure, from storage, processing, everything is being disrupted. And I'll talk a little bit about that more. So basically, I think the best way to put it is I think you have to contextualize your use cases around big data. And I'll talk about what we at Manthan have done for the last several years. But basically, if I was to borrow a page from John F. Kennedy's book, it's not what about data can do for you, it's what you can do about the data, right? I think that really is at the core of it. And so you have to really contextualize, what are your, what domain you're in, what is your business use cases, where are the gaps, where are the pain points, look at what kind of data sets exist, whether those are, being generated by source systems, they're syndicated data sources, social, mobile, that opens up a huge, new front, etc. Look at all of that data holistically and see how you can make sense of it, analyze it, and apply it to sort of your business domain, right? So that's, kind of contextualizes a very, succinct way to put, how you should approach kind of looking at data in your problem area. A little bit about Manthan, perhaps. So Manthan, how many people are familiar with Manthan? Okay, so I'll give a quick, sort of a bio. So Manthan is a 10-year-old company founded by another Atul Jalan. He is the founder, CEO. Started the company 10 years back. He's been a lifelong entrepreneur. Atul had worked with retailers, in his previous lives and saw the opportunity where large data sets were just sitting in storage, and being generated by source systems, ERP systems, CRM systems, point of sale systems, and doing nothing. And this was 10 years back. He saw enormous opportunity and he founded the company around two pillars. One was a very deep understanding of retail business processes and retail data, and marrying it to analytics. And this is much before, analytics and obviously big data were fashion statements, right? So that was the basis of the company. Those pillars have remained true. Today we are one of the global market leaders in that space, specifically around products. And so that's, that's a example where, you've taken a very deep, domain and applied data and analytics to it to drive, something very, very competitive and compelling for customers, right? So what are the trends? I want to talk about a couple of trends that we have seen, around data, what's happening lately in our domain. One is that, data is no longer an inert entity. I think data has become much more intelligent today, and the ability for you to transform data into something very meaningful is fairly easy, So in the sort of the business intelligence world, we call it transformation. But, if you're looking at an enterprise, marrying that data together, so for example, in our world, you have the merchandising side of the house, you have the supply chain. So merchandising is everything around sales, inventory, pricing, allocation, assortment, promotions, right? The second dimension is around supply chain. So how does a retailer work with their supplier? Perhaps a CPG manufacturer. The third domain, which is a very fast emerging domain, is around customer or marketing, right? So who's your customer? What are they buying? What is their buying behavior? What is their purchase history? trying to, segment them and, give them better promotions and offers. So taking all of those three siloed data sets, harmonizing them, right, marrying them together gives you tremendous opportunity. So that's an example where, in a vertical like retail, and with what's happening with online commerce, and how brick and mortar is being disrupted. And if you look at all the online vendors, I mean, they start with those kind of capabilities in their system from day one. For the brick and mortar, they're still catching up and trying to bring that harmonization. So I think that's a trend where data is actually becoming much more intelligent. The second sort of trend is analytics has become truly actionable. So I think when analytics, the whole bandwagon started many, many years back, it was about trying to support your business processes, perhaps automate them, validate them. Today, analytics is really at the forefront where it's become a decision-making and a decision execution system versus a decision support system, right? And so, for example, if you're doing price optimization, right, if you're a retailer, and pricing is the holy grail in retail, right? If you want dynamic pricing, or if you want even further, if you want personalized pricing per consumer, if you're running an algorithm there, right, and you've done some, some predictive analysis, and you think this is the right price for a product, for a SKU, right? Simulating what does that mean to my revenue, to my, to my margin. What does it mean for across category, sell-through? How is that impacting? So that's very deep, complex analysis. But these are the kind of systems that have started to evolve, and our company works on, where you can put this into the algorithm, you get back a simulation, and you may have a human workflow approval, and then you're actually writing it back to the source system, right? And this was unheard of many, many years back. But this is the kind of, the actionable aspect of analytics that's emerged. The third kind of trend I want to talk about related to that is, I think, descriptive analytics and everything around, understanding how your business is going, kind of business as usual, measuring historical performance, things like dashboards, reports, KPIs and all, has become a commodity. I think there are enough and more platforms, both online and sort of product platforms out there. So really the action is around predictive analytics. So really, again, taking, if you're in any specific business domain, taking the data, understanding it very deeply, understanding all of your use cases, marrying it to a very strong technology platform, and there should not be a need to reinvent the wheel there, right? And it can be open source or something available as a SaaS service. Marrying it to very strong advanced analytics, mathematical sciences, statistics, etc. I think that's really where the analytics world has evolved to, right? It's all about predicting future business outcomes and potentially predicting multiple outcomes, picking one outcome and seeing that it will have the best benefit to your business, because it will be a very complex equation, right? Is the way to think about it. And I talked about price optimization. You can think of other areas, for example, in retail, around sales forecasting. How can you forecast sales, for your business? How can you forecast it down to a region? How can you forecast it down to a store? What about a category level, down to a SKU level, right? So that's the sort of granularity and sophistication systems need to have today. The other examples of very highly desired models are things like markdown optimization. So if you have products that are not selling well enough, you want to lower the price, so that's a very complex algorithm. Things like offer recommendation. Assuming you've come up with a segment of customers that you want to target, you want to really go after with some promotions, right? How do you decide what are the best offers to give to them? So that's a very complex algorithm. What if you have a bank of offers, coming from your merchandise department, and you want to offer it to the right customers, so deciding what segment that should be. That's another, algorithm you may want to run. And of course, things like churn prediction, to give you some more examples where, you may have a segment of your loyalty customer base that may be about to churn, right? So you have certain churn predictors, and they may be about to churn, and you want to target them with some promotions and offers or marketing messages. So that's where you're taking analytics, to a very, very kind of sophisticated, actionable, level and benefit from it. So those are just some retail examples. The other kind of trend that's happening around data and analytics is, building optimization engines. So if you're in the analytics space, it's no longer enough to do the analysis and sort of leave it at that, right? You need to act on it, and I talked about write back. So these days the trend is to have actually optimization engines that actually complete that loop. So for example, if you're talking about customer analytics, right? If you understand your customer, what she's buying, when she's buying, if she's buying a particular item, what else is she buying, right? On top of that analysis, if you can actually use a personalization engine to actually target that consumer, right? Perhaps when the consumer walks into a store, right? Location heartbeat, just-in-time offer, right? And we've seen that, a very relevant use case. What about if the end user is on your e-commerce website and they've just abandoned a shopping cart? That's a trigger to the system, right? What if they've bought item A and you want to offer them, item B, affinity analysis, right? But doing that real time is really, where the whole analytics game has gone. Driving real time actions, through certain frameworks strongly tied to analytical systems. And that's where I think the future of analytics will be. It won't be a separate, system per se. It'll be part of your core transaction system, right? So that's another trend we're seeing. The other trend, and I kind of talked about it, is everything is becoming real time, right? I mean, if you look at the disruption in e-commerce that's happening, the customers on your website and, they're about to make a buy decision, or maybe they're doing research. So how do you make them, make that purchase, right? So all of your analysis needs to be real time and instantaneous, right? So that puts a lot of, puts a lot of focus on your infrastructure that's running it. So that's kind of the other piece. The infrastructure supporting big data and analytics has really evolved considerably. I mean, if you look at kind of it from a data acquisition point, processing point, and then, running some analysis, whether it's predictive or descriptive analysis. If you look at storage itself, I mean, conventional databases are being disrupted massively, right? The volumes of data we are looking at, multi-terabyte for sure, going much, much higher, and that's where, the conventional databases are looking at things like in-memory, so that they can have faster interactive queries, or looking at columnar storage from a technology standpoint where you have much more compression, or looking at massively parallel architectures where you have multi-node systems, right? And that's where you have all the big data appliances, and then there's the Hadoop, sort of the grid world happening, where, a lot of this is very, very efficient, but it works very well on the cloud, right? So if you're looking to start a new product, you should definitely look at the cloud, because it'll allow you that velocity and that, scale and performance, but also elasticity, right? I mean, as your business grows, firstly, you'll pay for what you've, basically utilized, and you'll be able to scale without any boundaries, right? So that's a very important aspect, in addition to having a very reliable system, right? If you're working on a public cloud, you'll get that, reliability, scalability, performance, and security as well. I think people misunderstand that, public clouds may be less secure, and you could have a virtual private cloud as well, if you're building a product or a service, sitting on any of the popular public clouds. So I'll just stop there. I just, want to summarize and say analytics has really, gone into new frontiers today. I think the right way to look at it is from a, how do you contextualize, what you're trying to solve, how uniquely you're trying to solve it, what is the pain point you're solving, and then look backwards at what kind of data you can leverage, whether it's, beyond the data you have today, acquiring syndicate data or getting social data or, unstructured, non-linear data from different sources, and then getting into your system and then, looking at, predictive and looking at very action frameworks and going very deep with your problem. There's tremendous opportunity. I don't think we've even scratched the surface then, and that's where, a lot of the startup action is. So I'll stop there. Very happy to, start a discussion.
I have a question.
Sure.
How are you making sense out of social data in the retail space right
right? So one is the well-known use case of sentiment analysis. I'll give you a kind of a mixed use case there. Let's say you're in Bangalore and you're a retailer, right? And through social signals, you can sense there's a flu outbreak happening, right? If you've really married your data well, you're seeing that, you're selling a lot of cold medicine in your stores, right? So you're getting those real-time triggers, right? Real-time analytics, big data analytics. Now you may run out of that, so now you can proactively warn your supply chain and get extra. Now what if you can do promotions and offers and get all of those customers to your store, whether it's online or brick and mortar, right? So proactively, having an engine that has some retail-rich rules that just senses those social signals, senses, we have cough and cold medicine flying off our shelves, and then proactively giving discount and offers, right? That could be a huge, boost. So marrying social data, with all the other pieces of data is a very, very powerful tool. The other I'll talk about for consumer packaged goods industries, typically CPG manufacturers like a Procter & Gamble, Unilever, they've worked with syndicated data sources. They've traditionally not had a direct connect to their end consumer. Today with mobile and social, they have that relationship and it's bi-directional, right? So they can actually give offers and promotions to their customers and learn how their products are being used and consumed and so on. Some examples. Okay, so I think we are out of time. Thanks very much and enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you.